Ready? Play.
My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Samaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Okay. Hello and welcome to day 6, last ball drops of the French Open. I'm joined by Carson and Damien. How are you doing, guys?
Doing well. Longer day of tennis, but it's a good day.
Yeah, yesterday, of course, I also did the last ball drops, and we said that today was going to be Women's Tennis Day. It kind of was. So excited to talk about both this time.
I have instructions to start with the match that just finished, actually, which was a little bit longer than we all anticipated, I think, but I think some people probably dove a bit deeper than was necessary. Alcaraz beats Jamor 6-1, 6-3, 4-6, 6-4. Damien, did you think it lasted a little bit longer than Alcaraz probably needed it to?
I mean, it probably didn't last long enough for it to matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, I doubt in 2 weeks' time or a week from here, we're going to be thinking, oh yeah, if only he didn't go 4 sets with Jumhur, if only that was the 3-setter, he probably is fine now physically. I doubt that's going to happen. But obviously, you know, managing your energy, managing the tiredness of the best of 5 format over 7 matches is also a thing. Carlos can't really do that because he just messes around a little too much. But yeah, I was also far from all these people whom I saw on social media over the last 30 minutes or so, just like freaking out. You know, it was like Carlos was 2-4 down in the 5th, not 2-3 down, 1-3 down in the 4th. Like, I don't know, it just never really felt like, you know, the match is on yet for me. But still, good effort from the underdog, obviously. Very unconventional game. Got into his head a little, at least for a while.
Yeah, and Carson, was there any sort of doubts when, you know, Jamor broke at 5-3 to kind of keep the game alive in the 4th?
I don't think so yet.
Hey
guys. I still thought
at
that point. I mean, if he holds and gets it to 5-5, maybe you can start having a conversation. But I mean, it felt like the last 10 minutes, Carlos had risen up a level again in his play a little bit. Jamor had maybe dropped a little bit. Yeah, like Damien said, there was maybe some irresponsible things that people have posted in the last 30 minutes. It was a pretty straightforward day of tennis, relatively speaking, as far as results. There were no upsets at all. Higher seeds and higher ranked players won every single singles match. So maybe people just getting a little bit excited for the potential of an upset, but I wasn't too concerned about Carlos.
Yeah, did you feel any sort of... do you feel like an upset was brewing, Vanch, after 6-4 in the 3rd? Or do you kind of thought that this would be wrapped up in 4?
I thought it would be wrapped up in 4 after he lost that 3rd set. But then when he went down 3-1 and he almost went down 3-love double break, it was starting to get a little too interesting, let's just say. For the possibility of a 5th was definitely there, for sure. just because of how many cat and mouse points Zoomer was winning, and how much he was kind of able to showcase his speed and his really good anticipation. And he was like reading the Carlos attacks really well, especially when Alcaraz was coming forward trying to finish points. So I thought Alcaraz was in a bit of a sticky situation there. But then, once he started to turn the hatches and started to think a little bit more clearly and calm down a bit, then it became much more likely that Alcaraz would come back and win in 4. But then Zoomer also, played a great return game at 5-3 and managed to extend the match even further. So, yeah, it was definitely got very interesting. It's not anything to be like overly concerned about, because Zoomer is a very specific kind of opponent, and the players that Alcaraz will face later on in the second week, I think it's more used to what he's seeing on a regular basis, let's say.
Absolutely. And you've teed me up really nicely there to talk about his 4th round opponent, who is Ben Shelton, after he came through in straight sets against Zhejiang, 6-3, 6-3, 6-4. Carson, this run sort of surprised you from Shelton, seeming that he's not had the greatest clay season?
I mean, it hasn't been great. There's also been a walkover in his run so far, which, I mean, that makes it a little bit easier for him. But, yeah, he's played Lorenzo Samgo in the first round. He's not an easy opponent, that 5 sets. So, I mean, maybe a little bit surprising if you just take that statement at face value that Ben Shelton is in the 4th round, but he hasn't had the most difficult run of opponents to get to this spot either. So, yeah, not shocked, I guess. Maybe a little bit surprised.
Yeah. And Damien, facing Alcaraz in round 4, does it give any sort of, is there a chink of light for Shelton in round 4?
Probably not. I mean, it's still a best of 5 match. We always say that Shelton against any top player, at least on paper, should be an exciting match. They've played twice, and in terms of like shot making and even the cockiness that Dave is mentioning in the chat, they both have a similar style, I guess, in terms of that, very, very flair heavy in terms of their games, and have that kind of like positive cockiness about them indeed. So I think it will be fun, but just thinking of Ben winning 3 sets, I don't think it's enough, and especially on clay, of course. We were hoping for a better match in Australia from him against Sinner. It was good for about a set. Maybe something like that here, yeah. 4-3, maybe 3 tight, maybe 4 that are going to be with 1 going to Shelton. But I don't really think, an upset is on the cards yet.
And do you feel as though Shelton's games kind of developed this season, Banch, on the clay for this sort of, we've always talked about Shelton's such a good record at slams, as in that's where he usually plays his best tennis. Has he kind of built it up for this sort of tournament?
Yeah, he's definitely shown that he can elevate in best of 5, and he definitely has more time to kind of iron out the highs and lows in his game. And I mean, that's what we saw in Australia. Also, a good draw for him. And the match against Gigante was very uneventful today. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit closer. But and then no match in the second round as well. So, but I think he's feeling good. He got a lot of good practice with that sort of ups and downs in his first match against Sonego, and he's in a good spot to kind of challenge and make it a competitive match, make it like exciting. I expect it to be like pretty flashy, pretty a lot of net points, a lot of really good sort of like counter-attacking, and I do expect a close set at least, or maybe he sneaks a set, but it's difficult to imagine him winning 3 sets against Carlos, they played twice, and it still felt like Alcaraz had a decent margin in both those matches. But I wonder if they play at night versus the day. I do think in the day Shelton's serve is a little bit harder to return because the conditions are more lively and it's a bit quicker. As we saw today, there actually weren't that many rallies in a lot of the men's matches, like earlier in the day when it was like there was a period where it was like pretty sunny and hot. So I wonder if it's at night actually, like maybe that favors Carlos more versus in the day. I think it probably helps Ben a little bit, relatively speaking, but I still expect Alcaraz to come through 3 or 4 sets.
And Carson, do you agree?
I agree. I think Carlos Alcaraz will go through. maybe it's not a straight set win. Might take 4, might take 5 even, but I do think that he'll pull through.
I think 5's a big push for Shelton, especially if Carlos is anywhere near the level that he can be. But yeah, I think 4 is probably a sensible shout, to be honest, but I'd still actually probably take 3 over 4, to be honest. Moving on, Musetti played Navoni today, and obviously Musetti dropped the first set 6-4, and then went on to win the next 3 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. Is there any sort of outsider chance of Musetti making, an even deeper run than he already has here, Vanch?
Well, he hasn't been past the 4th round, so I definitely think this is a good opportunity for whoever wins between Rune and Musetti to make the semis, because they will be favored in the quarterfinal. So from that standpoint, yeah, and he's usually only lost to Tsitsipas and Djokovic twice and Alcaraz 1 year. So from that standpoint, I mean, Rune is obviously a really tricky opponent, and I'm really looking forward to it. But in terms of his overall level and just how high his floor has been this clay season, you have to put him as a slight favorite against Rune. Obviously, it'll be kind of interesting to see what style of tennis Holger plays, because I do think he's really good at soaking up a lot of pace and defending really well, extending points. I do think he's better at that style. And then there's other times where he's just kind of overly offensive, and it's a little bit of an identity crisis sometimes with him in terms of his decision making, where I kind of trust Musetti a little bit more in that department. So I'm just probably going to go with the more secure pick in this one. But I do acknowledge it could be it is a good opportunity for Rune as well. It's a different situation he finds himself in this 4th round versus the 2 matches that he played against Casper. Coming in pretty physically spent. I do expect him to be a little bit fresher this time around, even though he did go 5 today. So we'll see. But more questions overall for Rune, and I pretty much with Musetti, I kind of know what I'm going to get more.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Musetti today, you obviously said earlier, Damien, that and you see it actually so often in the best of 5 format that in one set, the underdog, in a sense, kind of comes out firing, lands all the shots, hits, sideline to sideline, then a baseline, but just can't keep up, could he?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was kind of a match of clay court experts. So much good usage of angles, geometry, all sorts of different spins. But Musetti, in the long run, I mean, he has that magic touch to him, and especially when he loosens up, that's maybe the one thing that he has strictly over Navon, a better serve as well. But yeah, I mean, I would say that in terms of this, I think the biggest reward for the winner of this 4th round match between Musetti and Rune will just be the fact that they also will be the favorite in the quarters. So the stakes are just insanely high. And, Musetti has been the highest ranked player in the 3rd quarter for a while now. So the opportunity is there. And what's amazing is that he's also not letting the pressure get to him so far. We saw what Franz Rundolo had in his opening round after basically having a clay season where everybody is just penciling him in as a dark horse. Lorenzo so far seems to be avoiding that, and especially today when the opponent was strong, when the opponent was a clay court specialist himself, he responds to that. I think what somebody said in the chat just a second ago, maybe Dave, that Rune and Musetti in terms of the matchup, I mean, 2-0 for or 2-love for Holger, but they haven't played on clay. They haven't played since Lorenzo made all that progress. I think when both players are just this complete, this versatile, it's very hard to pick a winner from that. Everything will have to be played for, and just basically comes down to execution.
Yeah, and looking towards the match, obviously the 4th round between Rune and Musetti, Carsten, do you think Rune will be feeling any sort of fatigue after his match today?
Well, maybe a little bit. He's played more tennis today, has played a little bit more tennis all tournament long, hasn't gotten out of any of his matches too cleanly. So it could be a factor, but they've got 2 days of rest now. I don't think it will be the primary reason if Rune were to lose to Musetti. Musetti's playing really well, has been playing well for quite a long stretch of time. So I think Musetti will come out of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that a general consensus that Musetti comes out on top in this one?
I don't have a prediction of any sorts. I can only say that if it goes longer, it kind of tips the scales to Lorenzo, which I guess is fine. But, again, they're both just so complete, can play this match in so many different ways. That is just who executes better on the day, really. And either player to me is just going to make the semis from here. So the stakes are massive.
Vance, you have Musetti or Rune?
I'll go Musetti in 5.
Excellent. Obviously, Rune came through his match in 5 today. 4-6, 6-2, 5-7, 7-5, 6-2 against Hallis, the last male Frenchman in the tournament after Artifice withdrew, unfortunately, with a back
I guess
ache.
he was already out of the tournament when Arthur withdrew. So
yeah, with a back problem that he picked up in the Munar match. That's very unfortunate. Moving on to Daniel Altmayer versus Medjedovic. I know that Damien probably was all over this match. So why don't you kick us off? Yeah,
I mean, it was a bit of a tough watch because after the third game, Medjedovic is already getting some attention from the physios, points to his heart, gets, some pills, blood pressure and everything gets tested. He tanks like one of the next games after the NTO and suddenly just starts playing, what does Medjedovic do when he is like super tired or just ill or feeling unwell? He's just going to slam, instead of 250 km/h forehands, he's just going to go 350. And he's just going to play even more drop shots, even though, even healthy right now, he's playing maybe 50% rallies. He's playing a drop shot. So for a while, it was working. But obviously, the last 2 sets, they were a bit of a farce. I mean, they weren't really a tennis match. I'm surprised he kept going because it made literally no sense. But even the penultimate game, he saves a few match points. He gives the crowd something. So, you can't say that he didn't give it a go. But it was a very weird match for sure. And then Altmayer just kind of needed to, wait him out, survive.
Carson, do you think Altmayer sort of is the favourite going into his next match against Tiafoe?
Maybe. I mean, Tiafoe's, biggest win obviously against Korda, and neither of them are naturals on clay court. But I do think Tiafoe will be a bit of a favourite. Altmayer winning wouldn't surprise me at all, though.
Yeah. And Vance, anything particularly stand out to you in Altmayer's game today? Obviously, it's hard to say something sticks out when your opponent is physically hampered, but anything in particular?
No, I think sometimes it can be more difficult because you can get a little bit more carried away maybe, or you can go for more extravagant kind of shot making, or you can maybe play it too safe. But I think he found a decent balance because Medjedovic, you saw that match that he won against Steph, for example, when he was just crushing forehands and stuff back in February when he was just totally out of it. And he's capable of that because, his drop shots, he's won probably a lot of matches in his career just cramping and not at his best physically. And so I guess for Altmayer, it was just good that he stayed really steady and he stayed pretty focused and he didn't on his serve, he took care of his service games pretty comfortably and didn't expend a ton of emotional or physical energy in this one, and he just kind of did what he had to do. He was very business-like, so that's good. And obviously, it continues to be a nightmare to hit through in these conditions with how fast he is and how much power he's able to generate from his backhand, pretty deep inside the court, and also the variation is pretty good. And he's been surprisingly good on the forehand as well. And I don't normally associate that with Altmayer because sometimes I don't really love him from middle of the court attacking positions on the forehand wing. But, in the Fritz match and at times today, he was pretty decent in those exchanges. So, yeah, I like the way Francis has been playing as well. He he didn't lose any sets so far. And he won that really tight first set against Sebi, which kind of broke Sebi because it was such a brutal set to lose. And, he's finding that good form at just the right time. So I would probably back Tiafoe in this one, but I wouldn't at all be shocked if, like Carson said, if Altmayer came back and won.
Sorry. I feel like this is such a big opportunity for Altmayer to kind of make even more progress. Obviously, it's been such a good tournament for him, but he's, I feel like Tiafoe is probably a very it's not easy, but it's doable in a sense. But going back to what you said about Medjedovic and Altmayer kind of taking care of his serve, like you saw in the Tsitsipas match in Doha, that Medjedovic was obviously injured, and then like Tsitsipas completely just imploded, and Medjedovic was just landing all the forehands, was serving bombs, and Tsitsipas.
But that was 2 games, right? And he needed to win 3 sets. That was the main issue.
No, exactly. But like it's the same sort of reference.
Yeah.
Moving to the Tiafoe match versus Korda, this was like, I think I saw it was Tiafoe's first win of a top 30 player on clay in like 1,124 days or something like that. So like 3 years or something like that. But it's been a very surprising uplift in form, hasn't it, Carlson?
It has been, and I mean, lots of stats for him coming out of this. Clay is not his favorite surface by any stretch of the imagination. It's not his favorite season of the year. But yeah, this was a really good win today. And yeah, after that first set, it kind of felt like everything was just going to go fairly easy for him. It was just a downhill run from that point. Especially that third set, Sebi didn't put up a ton of resistance, it felt like to me. Like it just felt very straightforward at that point that Francis was going to get this win and move on.
Yeah, and is that kind of surprising that there wasn't really that much resistance from Korda? Well, said resistance from Korda in sets 2 and 3, Damien?
I suppose, but Tiafoe, I mean, he won 9 sets at this event. All his matches were just so. I mean, there was literally nothing happening, no drama whatsoever. So I've barely watched him, to be honest with you. And I'd actually changed my pre-tournament idea that probably the winner of like Medjedovic against, I don't even know who I guess I had Altmayer there, of the winner of Medjedovic Altmayer making the quarters. I think Francis might easily do it now. Hamad probably matched up better against him than Daniel does. The way that Altmayer like unloaded the power of Fritz, and let's say could have done it against Medjedovic because we didn't really get to see that much. I don't think it works against Francis as much. Like he's not gonna blindly attack him like that. He's got so much more variety and so physical as well. I'm kind of buying into the Tiafoe hype without watching him. So I think he might make the quarters here. But I do see also like the merit of a potential Musetti Altmayer match. That would be like a clone war in a way. Like they both try to do the same thing. Of course, one-handers, but also just try to do the same thing, playing from 2 meters behind the baseline and like slowly moving up. And I don't know who would, be there first in that. So I see the merit in that too, but I'm kind of siding with Francis right now.
Does this sort of form bode well for Francis's rest of the season bench?
I think so. I think he's kind of more or less in the same place he was last year. Like does well in Houston, and it's kind of like 50% the rest of the year until he gets to like Wimbledon, and then he gets to the 3rd round, and then he has chances against Carlos, and then he has a good US swing, and then ultimately peaks at the US Open, which he loves. So if he can have one good showing before Wimbledon this year, and kind of, because it's still kind of unlikely that he's going to defend like Cincinnati final and like, US Open semis, you never know. He seems to always make the second week there, but it's good. It's good that he's able to showcase it more often than just the US Open, because he really does kind of peak for just 3 or 4 events in the year. So he is kind of able to bring his attacking game style, crushing and rushing returns, and like, waiting for just the right balls and playing very, very aggressively, almost like it doesn't matter that it's on clay. So for the most part, I still don't think he's like an awesome mover on the surface or anything, but he's just sort of really confident in the brand he plays, and so far it seemed to work pretty well. Like very little drama in any of his matches, apart from the first set today, and even that was just a server contest for the most part. So he looks like he's in pretty decent shape. And he would love if that match is on a bigger court, because that's usually when he brings out the best tennis, and he can get the crowd involved and everything. So
incorrect, Ghosty, by the way. The clay season starts in South America.
The third American that was able to come through to make the second week was Tommy Paul, as he beat Kachanov 6-3, 3-6, 7-6, 3-6, 6-3. It wasn't a long one, but it was one of the longer ones of the day, wasn't it, Carson?
It was, and lots of extra sets for Tommy Paul this week. I think he's played 14 sets in 3 matches, so he's been on court quite a bit at this point. And towards the end of this and throughout this match, it doesn't look like he's necessarily in the greatest of health. So we'll have to see if that has any effect on him moving forward. But yeah, good win today. Khachanov, not an easy player at all to go up against. He's such a big hitter in these moments. So it's a very good win for him.
Was Kachanov the favorite, kind of like going in? Obviously, Tommy loves it in Rome, where the conditions are really kind of similar to here. Bench, was Paul the favorite going in?
Oh, I definitely gave Khachanov a bit more of a chance, especially after the ab injury that he suffered and Paul suffered in the second round. That was an absolute battle against Vucevic, and he kind of needed absolutely everything and more to come back from 2 sets stuff. So from that standpoint, I knew that Khachanov would make it really physical, and I kind of felt like if it did go 5, then maybe it would favor him slightly. But also Tommy's like overall level has still been pretty sound for the most part. He's still overall like the more flashier player, just more tools overall than Khachanov has, and Khachanov is just like a really strong baseliner who's not going to give up his ground. But towards the end of the match, the worrying part for Tommy is like he was up double break in this 5th set, and then afterwards he started to really slow down with the serve and particularly some movements to his backhand side, which is the more reliable wing for him. So I'm a little bit concerned about like 10 sets of tennis going into the 4th round, and he does have like a grade A strain, which has been confirmed by his team. So I do kind of wonder if there's an expiration date on this run like coming, and it's a great opportunity for him against Popperin. Like he could in ideal circumstances be loving his chances to get to the quarters, but I'm just concerned physically.
Does he get to the quarters, Damien?
I mean, right now I would probably side with Popperin. I don't think something crazy happened to him, Dave, who just a second ago he said something like, what the hell has gotten into Popperin on clay? I mean, Umag title, Monte Carlo quarters, lots of fairly okay runs. Just the Roland Garros record was surprisingly poor, but I think in as many ways as like Kokinaki's game is fine on clay, it's kind of the same with Popperin. Spinny forehand, can protect the backhand a bit better. Why not? And yeah, seeing the last 2 rounds from Tommy, I am kind of tempted to just now side with Popperin, which wouldn't have been the case pre-tournament. But I think the draw has really opened up for Alexei. And seems like he has a very good shot at making the quarters. Neither of these players is beating Carlos Alcaraz, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's the worst part of the draw, you would say. Would you rather be on Sinner's side of the draw or Alcaraz's side of the draw, right? You'd probably, in the long run, favor having Sinner on your side of the draw, or is that just
why? I think it's the other way around.
Really? Or would you not kind of look into the sort of dominance that Carlos has had this season on the clay?
I don't think it matters, simply because Carlos is so much more flaky, and like he can actually lose to somebody like Damir Dzumhur today. Like Yannick Sinner does not do that ever. So
yeah, but do you not feel as though like no matter what he's sort of playing like, that he'll always come through, and then when it really matters, then he'll sort of like completely.
But Sinner will do it even more efficiently. I think if I have to be in one of the halves, I would still want to be in Alcaraz's, because there's simply a higher chance that he's going to be eliminated by somebody, even though right now I don't really think it will happen. But just in the grand scheme of things, I suppose.
Yeah. Also, it was a very top-heavy draw to begin with, right? Because you did have like Sinner there, Djokovic if he's in form, Zverev there, so it was always going to be more preferable to land in the bottom half, I think, even though Carlos is the overall favorite for the title.
Yeah. And might as well, Carson, bottom or top half of the draw.
And I think I would rather be on Carlos' side of the draw, for a lot of reasons, but just like, Vench mentioned just how top heavy that part of the draw is. But like I think if you just had to choose like one or the other with no other factors, I think you would choose, like Vicky, being on Carlos' side of the draw, but I do wonder if you would, on clay specifically, not on grass or hard court, if you would maybe prefer to play Sinner as opposed to Alcaraz, just because of the ceiling that Alcaraz has shown on clay.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm going for. Final result from the men's today before we move up to the women's was Popperin 6-4, 7-6, 7-6 against Borges. Anyone got any thoughts before we move on to the women about that match?
I mean, it was a good match. Yeah, really nice run for Tapia in here, and he's got a good opportunity in front of him to make quarterfinals, where probably Alcaraz awaits, so it could be the end of his run. But yeah, it's been a solid week for him, so good to see him getting some wins.
Yeah. Moving on to the women's, Aryna Sabalenka won against Danilovic 6-2, 6-3. Danilovic posed a little bit of a threat in set 2, Vance, didn't she?
Yeah, it got a little bit more complicated, but I kind of knew it would because Danilovic is pretty good on clay. He's pretty tricky lefty. She can definitely mix it up. Plays really well down the line. Can be like sort of attacking and also has good variety when she drops back and defends. You know, those loopier shots on the clay, they get her in. She's able to absorb the power a little bit better on the surface, I feel like, from a defensive point of view. So, you know, that made things a little bit tricky for Sabalenka, who was just forced to hit more balls to finish the point. But at the same time, there wasn't really that much jeopardy. Like, there was a few breakbacks, and then you kind of knew that Sabalenka, you know, on serve, she just had such a big edge, and like her overall, she's the best player in the world right now. So, I wasn't really looking at it as like upset alert, but I knew there'd be like one tricky set. Whereas the next round, that's where it gets interesting. That's where you can start talking about maybe a potential very tricky opponent.
Even though she's world #1, she's not the favorite for the title, is she, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I think before the event, she was certainly the favorite, like percentage-wise. I didn't pick her, but you know, it's super close between the first few contenders. I don't think we can just like with full honesty say that she is not the favorite. I mean, she is at least comparable to other players. But Anisimova, you know, right now, that will be a threat. I think with Danilovic, we were definitely thinking this could be super easy, but could be tricky if like because how the play styles match up, right? But like if there's a universe where Aryna just, or reality where Aryna just literally comes out and blows her off the court, which sort of happened, almost happened. And Anisimova, I mean, obviously it's very different. 5-2, and not all of these matches are way back in the past. 1-1 last year. And you just know that she is not going to be the one like dictating things. And you just know she's going to be under a lot of pressure as well. Love the Anisimova performance today against Towson. I mean, the backhand is just such a heavy shot. And it kind of made me think again that, you know, this is possible. I think I even picked that in my bracket, if I remember correctly. I think I picked Anisimova over Sabalenka. After watching today, I would say, yeah, it's possible. It's a close match.
Sabalenka kind of cruising through these opening, well, not cruising through, but making lighter work of these opening rounds. She'd want to kind of saving herself for week 2, isn't she, Carson?
She is, and I mean, yet to drop more than 3 games in any set. So there have been a couple of sets. First one against Jill Teichmann, second set today against Danilovic that were a little bit more cagey than some others, but she hasn't been threatened yet. I do think that's going to change in a couple of days when Anisimova plays her.
Do you have a sort of bold prediction for the Anisimova-Sabalenka match?
I mean, I think I would lean Sabalenka here. So I made some bold predictions with Anisimova in the past, but yeah, I think Sabalenka is playing really well, and yeah, I think she's going to make a nice run here.
Does everyone still lean Sabalenka?
Me? No, I mean, I picked Anisimova in my bracket, so I guess I can stick with that because we haven't seen anything like to the contrary. So why not? But obviously, yeah, I just think it's a very tight match. And the head-to-head record, I know it's maybe not really like even the sample size. Yeah, 7 matches, but it's not 20 or something like that. But nonetheless, I do think that the players, well, let's say that this type of play style is very likely to cause issues to Arena. It's been doing that all season, really. Ostapenko Stuttgart final, for example, or the 1,000 matches. So yeah, I mean, I think she's definitely going to struggle at least here.
Anisimova's having a great year, isn't she, Bench? And kind of winning that title in Doha.
Yep, Doha.
Doha. Yeah, has kind of boosted her this season even further.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the best tennis she's played over like a 9-10 month period for sure. She had a few dips after Charleston didn't play her best tennis, but this week so far, and then the important points against Towson, she really the tie break, for example, and then also the game at 4-all where she broke. She really stepped up, and she has this easy power on the backhand where it's she's really good at absorbing pace that comes at her and sending it back faster than the opponent. And I feel like she's one of the few players who can knock Sabalenka on her heels from the baseline and go toe-to-toe, especially backhand to backhand. And she can change directions down the line at will. She's been serving pretty well this tournament. I think the clay helps her with a little bit extra time on the forehand, but against Sabalenka, that could all easily change with how aggressive she returns. So I feel like it'll be a very close match. I would probably I probably would pick Anisimova to win a set at least. And then after that, it's very much possible. And then it's kind of about how Arena will respond, because I do think it's a different test than anything she's faced in the first 3 rounds, where she's been pretty efficient for the most part so far. So probably if I still have to pick, I would pick Sabalenka in 3, but I do think Anisimova could come really close to this.
I will give you guys a wild comparison. When I was watching Anisimova hit her backhand today, all I had in mind was Alexander Bublik in Turin and in the last 3 sets against the Minor. That's literally very similar. It's backhand hitting, which is insane. But
yeah, I never thought Bublik and Anisimova would be compared. But Damien's full of surprises as always. Iga Swiatek came through her match against Christian 6-2, 7-5. Set 2 was obviously I wouldn't say a struggle, but it was a lot closer. The furthest that Swiatek's been pushed this tournament so far, wasn't it, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, I think Christian gave an inspired performance for sure. You can definitely look at it both ways. Iga is not dominating the opening week at Roland Garros as she usually is. But at the same time, she got a lot of good reps in today against an opponent who was really, well, first of all, serving very well, but also in the rallies was just not shying away from anything really. And I think she still showed a lot of just how different her game is at this event with these big courts, with so much time on her shots. I think she was super fun to watch as well with all the angles and, using the physicality as we usually would like her to, but it's not always happening. So yeah, I think it was a very good, warm up for the next round. Of course, it's better for her that it's going to be Rybakina than Ostapenko, because it seemed like in the last 2 matches, especially this year, she found something against Elena, was able to start moving her around a lot more and yeah, basically get to do that at least regularly. But nonetheless, I think this was a really good sort of preparation for latter stages moment, and just a lot of tough work, honestly, almost 2 hours, I think, for the 2 sets.
And Damien, obviously talking about reps there, is it good that, she's kind of had that tight set after the season? She hasn't had her greatest clay season that she would have liked to have had defending all those points, cousin. So, that coming through that tight set's a big confidence booster for her, right?
It's not a bad thing at all. I think she would prefer to be winning 1-0 in all of her sets, but yeah, it's not a bad thing to get one of these sets out of the way still relatively early on in the tournament. She hopes to go quite a bit further from here. Yeah, Christian was very good today, put up a great challenge, especially in the second set, and Iga had to go earn this one. And she ended up pulling this out late. So it's a really good win for her, and a much bigger challenge coming up now. But yeah, the match against Rybakina will be very interesting.
Yeah, and looking forward to that Rybakina match. Is Swiatek still is? There was obviously that press conference that we were talking about before this stream. That was obviously talking about. Swiatek said in the interview that she won't be looking at the Rybakina Ostapenko match, and obviously that was a lie. Is she kind of obviously? Rybakina is one of 5 people before this season, 5 people to be in Swiatek on clay in Rome in 23, was it? 23?
Yeah, the quarters in 23. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that kind of sitting in the back of Iga's mind, or is it for Roland Garros so full throttle for Iga ahead of this matchup, Ange?
Yeah, I don't know how much she'll be looking at the Rome match, because she was up 6-2, 4-2, and it looked like she was going to win that, and then the second set got a little complicated. She had that injury and she retired like 2 games into the third. So I think in her mind she'll feel like, okay, for 85-90% of that match I was able to move Rybakina around. I was able to play my usual sort of heavy topspin high margin tennis, and she does have I think the test today was really good for her, because like in the first set against Christian, she basically just only had to worry about herself and just play her normal brand of tennis without thinking about the opponent. But in the second set, when the opponent actually stepped up, that's when she was forced to like just construct points a lot better and like use the width of the court, and like just it was a lot more like thinking that she had to do on the spot, and she saved 6 break points out of 6 and didn't get broken. So that was a good test for her, because it didn't end up going 3. And she like still had to battle for an hour 20 minutes, and so I think from a mental standpoint that's pretty good. Obviously a very different opponent in Rybakina in the next round, and Rybakina is in great form herself, but overall Iga should still feel like, okay, I'm coming into this with a lot of positive things, even if my clay season hasn't gone nearly as well as I would have wanted or anybody hoped for. It's still she's got the history at this event, she's got the recent history against Elena, she's got the test that she needed in the third round. So yeah, I mean, overall, she would have prepared this much more than Ostapenko. She made that pretty clear in the press conference, even though she didn't directly say it. It was like she was caught red-handed almost by the journalists in the room. So
absolutely. And Damien, I think it was maybe on day 3 of Last Ball Drops, you were saying that you're not going to say that we're going to get an Ostapenko Iga round 4, because you just don't back Ostapenko to make you can't call it, you said, because you just don't know what you're going to get when Ostapenko steps onto the court. And today specifically, was there anything that went wrong for Ostapenko?
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it. I think there are definitely better runs, better tournaments that kind of show it, because she tends to lose to basically anybody if she has a very bad day at the office. Today it was Rybakina, so I still respect Elena a lot. It's also been a conversation of the past like half a year. How high are we still treating Rybakina? Is she still like top 5 level wise or not? I have her like thereabouts. So yeah, I don't think to lose to an opponent like this, something has to go necessarily wrong for her. Obviously, yeah, it would have been maybe a slightly better narrative, slightly better story if she got to play Iga. But I think in the end, that's also a pretty difficult opponent. I think I said in a tweet today that like Swiatek was able to use all the time she has on this court at this event today, but then the test will be next round when she has none of it. And against Rybakina, she doesn't quite have none of it. She kind of has some of it. Also, to answer the question that Jake wanted me to answer, I don't think so. I think it would have been difficult to win set 1 easier than she did. But probably maybe she like closes it out a little bit quicker just before Christian, gets going by this much. But I don't think a 1-0, but I guess I'm a supporter of the theory that she could have closed it out a little quicker last year, yeah.
Does Rybakina she obviously won the title in Strasbourg, and she's kind of swept through the opening 3 rounds here. Well, she didn't quite sweep through her first round match, but she made it through her first round match. Does she have a lot of confidence going to this Iga match, Carson?
I think so. what does this say, 9-match winning streak now. So it's 8 matches. Yeah, 8. So I mean, again, that's not something that can hurt at all. And yeah, has had matches against Medjedovic, who, I mean, that wasn't the easiest match to come through either necessarily. And then Ostapenko in this one. So I think she's got some confidence. I think this match, though, is going to be a really good tell for where these two players are headed the rest of the season. If one of them looks fantastic or if both of them look really well. Yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting and kind of like a match that we could look back at in 5 or 6 months and say, remember that when that happened, and it was kind of like a turning point for someone's season.
Yeah. And I kind of feel that, you know, Iga, I think it was it Dave that said that Iga will have, I think French Open fever was the words he used, and kind of sweep past Rybakina. And it actually wouldn't surprise me if she does, but I feel like Rybakina has more in the tank to give than Iga to sweep past. She doesn't quite give you that time on court to, you know, exactly put the ball where you want to. And, you know, the forehand doesn't, no, sorry, if the backhand battle is won by Rybakina, then things can get pretty close, because that's where I think things are probably the closest in terms of matching up them directly. But yeah, it should be very interesting, but I still favor Iga, I think. Moving on to Qinwen Zheng. And
one more thing then, because if we're moving on, calling it a 50-50 by the producer, completely wild, completely wrong in my opinion. Easily Iga's favor. I mean, if she was able to, you know, basically do what you were just saying, so like actually find that time against Rybakina in some quicker conditions recently, I don't really see how she doesn't do it here. I'm okay. This is gonna be a bold moment. I don't think she's gonna lose a set in this one. I don't think she's gonna lose a set in this one. Not at all. I don't think it's close. I would have said it's close before the tournament, but I'm starting to believe. And I think it's gonna be like 80-ish, let's say, Jake.
Vance, do you agree?
I think it'll still be a little close because, you know, I like the way Rybakina is playing right now, and her game is just a lot more tightened up. If I watched like Rybakina in Rome and she still kept playing the way she did in like Strasbourg and here, then I would have been like, oh, the movement is so off, and like this is not nearly the same Rybakina as like a year ago or 2 years ago. But watching her play, like I'm kind of like, she can make it tight. Like I don't think Swiatek will lose a set, but I'm expecting something like a, I don't know, like a 7-5, 6-3 or 7-5, 6-4. Like I could see it being still tricky, but not enough to where I would pick Rybakina. I still think Iga's like almost a 70-30 favorite, like 2/3, 1/3 kind of a thing.
Okay. Well, we will now move on as Damien's had his rant to Zheng versus Mboko. Obviously, Mboko is such a rising sort of talent on the WTA, and she gave Zheng a run for her money, didn't she, Carson?
She did. This was, I mean, close for a while. Zheng didn't necessarily play at her best today. Mboko's level was pretty high, so I mean, I think you can see there's still a gap in between what Victoria Mboko can do against top 10 players and the distance that she needs to grow. But I mean, making the third round here, I think it's an encouraging tournament for her, and she can come out of this tournament feeling pretty good about where she's at right now.
Is Zheng kind of drifting like through the tournament without people really like thinking about her in any sort of, you know, contention capacity, Damien?
I don't know. Today was a bit of a blockbuster. Yeah, I don't think Mboko gave her a run for her money, to be honest. I think that Qinwen was just like playing so heavy that basically she couldn't attack the way she usually wants to. And in that sense, I think she like executed the plan very well. But for Mboko to hit 5 winners in a match, that probably last happened when she was like 12. So I'm actually very impressed with Qinwen's ability to get through these first 3 rounds and like never look bothered, really. Like she's just looking like, you know, an elite pro who's obviously likes this court, likes these conditions, and is just like gonna basically not lose to somebody who's not an elite pro either. So yeah, I think today it's pretty weird to me that she said that she played her worst tennis of the tournament, although it's just 3 matches. But I think she was just perfect today in terms of just applying the right game plan and, you know, sticking to it, like whatever, really. I think she basically locked Mboko out of play so much that I'm kind of surprised she called it the worst. But then again, it's just 3 matches.
And Vanch, obviously, she won the Paris Olympics here. Coming up to what, 9 months ago? 10 months ago. Does that also give her a little extra edge coming into this tournament?
Yeah, I think she's actually exuding quite a lot of confidence and swagger. Like, just mentally, like, she just looks in a really good spot. You know, I think the Rome run really gave her a lot of confidence, even though it kind of ended the same way the WTA finals match ended for her. But she got the win over Aryna Sabalenka, which was really big for her, like, mentally. And also just the fact that she won the Olympics last year, the way she's played these last 3 rounds, she just looks really, like, large and in charge when it comes and taking care of business really comfortably. Like, I did expect this match to be, I did expect Mboko to have more moments in this match than she did, and Zheng just like executed really perfectly with how you know, heavy she was hitting from the baseline, and it just like the contact points weren't what Mboko was used to against previous opponents. So that's a big deal on clay when you can give yourself that extra time and you hit as heavy as Qinwen does. So I am, you know, I was circling that Qinwen and Aryna quarterfinal, and I think we're probably going to get it. Although, you know, I know Samsonova does lead the head-to-head 3-2. But I wouldn't read too much into that because their last meeting was like 2023 August, Cincinnati, and that's like Qinwen is a much better player now, I think. So,
yeah. Paolini obviously came through her match in quite easy fashion, 6-4, 6-1. Paolini potentially setting up. Well, we're still on track for a Paolini Iga quarterfinal. Paolini kind of, again, a bit like Zheng, kind of drifting through the early rounds without any sort of hassle, isn't she, Damien?
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely been maybe even winning her matches even more lopsidedly, more decisively. At the same time, I think the opposition has been rather comfortable for her. You know, Tomljanovic, who had just retired in Rabat, and I don't know how she even won the first round. Started with Seba, who again, like, yeah, doesn't really have much to threaten her with. But obviously, that's exactly what she wants. Get through the first 3 rounds easily, because now the challenges start for Jasmine. And it's kind of, I think, for both Paolini and Svitolina, like, if I just think about their potential draw going into the future, that they have to play one another, then likely Swiatek, then let's say Sabalenka or Zheng, then let's say go for Andreeva. I mean, that would be a hell of a route to win a title. So she's perfectly fine with these first 3 easy rounds, because if she's going to make the final again, it's just going to be, you know, blockbuster matchups left and right. So far we haven't really seen anything about Jasmine Paolini really at this event.
Do you reckon she still feels confident that she can back up her points that she has to defend this year, Carson?
I think she's confident, and obviously part of that confidence coming off of a title in Rome as well, that will help a lot. Yeah, but this is going to be a very fun matchup now. She's had 3 fairly straightforward wins up to this point. Did drop the second set in her opening round match, but yeah, came out of that rather comfortably in the third set. But Svitolina is going to be a big challenge for her, and kind of that first testing point of where she's at in the tier of contenders for this tournament.
Yeah, and that title in Rome obviously giving her all the confidence she needs, right, Vanch?
yeah, I mean, there was always the big question coming into the spring is like she has those 2 finals to defend, and RG and Wimbledon, and obviously last year she also had the Dubai title, but then she kind of makes up for it by getting to the Miami semis, winning in Rome, and I don't think that's on her mind anymore. So I think it probably was heading into March, because, you know, the first 3 months of the year where she was a bit cool, like she cooled off in terms of her results, but not anymore. I think now she's been playing really well since Miami, and she looks pretty confident. But Svitolina is going to, you know, offer a different set of challenges with just like how high her well her season has gone. Honestly, she's been a top 10 player this year. So yeah, it's not easy to get Svitolina in the fourth round when you consider like they're both like sort of top 8 contenders in my view. So yeah, I think that match will kind of tell us a lot about where Paolini is headed.
Yeah, and obviously Paolini versus Svitolina. Svitolina's been in exceptional form this year, right? And it was a hard-fought win for her today, right, Carson?
It was. 2 tie breaks to get past Bernarda Pera. She served for the match twice and wasn't able to get it done, but able to pull this one out. It was a crazy second tie break. Was down 3-love in it before she was able to flip it around and pull away. But yeah, absolutely crazy back and forth match.
Does Svitolina feel like she can call? Well, would it even be classed as an upset if Svitolina got past Paolini, Damien?
Not for me. I guess you'd find people where it would be. To me, it's like a 50-50 match. Again, I kinda don't consider either to be a title contender right now, mostly because of how hard their draws are after that even. So I think that's kind of like the main issue for either woman. But in another section, I think both easily could have made the final, maybe, or the semifinals from the bottom half especially. So yeah, I mean, Svitolina, 2 very tough matches the last 2 rounds, but still wins them in straights. I don't really know where that puts her, but it looks like health-wise she's okay. So to me, it's a very tough, very tight match between them two. Yeah.
Yeah, and Svitolina kind of this season proving why she was in that position in the rankings, right? Vanch, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, wins the title in Rouen, Australian Open quarterfinals, like good runs at like most of the tournaments she's played this year. Pretty decent Rome. Like, yeah, it's been like a top 8, top 9 type of year, and she's got a win over Paolini in Australia, but that's the only time they've ever played. In the third round there, and yeah, the draw is kind of brutal. But then you never know if Rybakina beats Swiatek or something, and then then things open up maybe a little bit more for them. But I would put Paolini as a favorite here, but not by much. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Svitolina ends up winning, but percentage-wise, yeah, I still go Paolini.
Carson, do you have Paolini as favorite?
I think I'm leaning towards Svitolina in this match to pull an upset here. I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be pretty close, though. Whether it's like 2 close sets or it does get to a third. Yeah, I'll pick Svitolina here.
I feel like the longer it goes, the more I favor Paolini, but I'm also kind of leaning Svitolina. Damien, what about you?
I think I had Svitolina in my bracket. I see no reason to change that, but it's super close. And also, Jane, yes, I noticed you lurking. I will take note of that.
And our final result was Samsonova beating Yastremska 6-2, 6-3. Very routine for her, right, Bench?
Yeah, to be honest, I've watched very little of Samsonova this whole week. I've just been looking at this. I don't think I've watched more than like 3 or 4 points of her, just because of when she was scheduled. But yeah, she's another player who just kind of is a little inexplicable to me. Like, she'll take a lot of like early losses, and then like suddenly the week before a major, she'll like either win a title or get to at least the semis, and then maybe come in with enough confidence to get to a 4th round like this. She hasn't made a quarterfinal yet, but the match against Qinwen, like, maybe she does offer something more tricky than, for example, Qinwen had today, and I'm still definitely like not ruling out her chances, but I would be surprised if she made it a step further. I think this is where she's always proven is her ceiling in the majors so far. But at the same time, I do like her forehand, for instance, is one of the best when it's clicking. She does have a good forehand drop shot too. She does have this combination of like power and some finesse, which is always useful on the clay. But we'll see. Yeah, I haven't seen too much of her this week.
Qinwen still not heavy favorite, but favorite for this matchup, Carson?
I think a favorite. It'll definitely be the strongest opponent that she's faced today, and same goes for Samsonova, strongest opponent that she's faced today's match. it honestly was a little bit more about Diana Yastremska being Diana Yastremska and just spraying balls all over the place a little bit. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. And yeah, as Vanch said, when Samsonova is playing well, like she's can reach a very high level. It's just the level of consistency, and not sure if she can hold up for 3 sets with Zheng.
Yeah, that'll be a big test for Samsonova to kind of push through Zheng, obviously, with those, obviously, in terms of physicality, how well Qinwen competes on court, let alone, you know, the memories that obviously Zheng has here as much as, you know, experience, I would say. But yeah, what are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, I mean, I do remember some of these matches that I think Vansh mentioned earlier in their head-to-head. Back then, Samsonova sometimes would really like boss Zheng around. I don't know if on this particular clay court, though, this will happen. I mean, most of the tactical plan that Zheng, I think, executed so well today, it's kind of what she has to do against Samsonova as well. So I think as long as she's doing that on like the same very like professional level as today, she's probably going to be okay.
Excellent. And lastly, before we wrap up, I would like one men's and women's match tomorrow that each of you are looking forward to. We'll start with Carlson.
Yeah. I mean, Rublev Fees, that should be a pretty good match. Unfortunately, not going to happen. So, outside of that, though, yeah, I think, yes, Sinner Lehechka, I think that one's interesting. Lehechka's been playing well this week. And then, obviously, Draper Fonseca. I'll just sneak into there. And then on the women's side, Maddie Kiza and Sophia Kenin is probably the match I'm looking forward to the most.
Vanch?
Well, how about the all Brit match between Fernie and Nori? That one is exciting. I know you're gonna say like, it doesn't matter because whoever has
it's like Tiafoe Corda. Like what does it matter who wins? I don't know. I just can't get excited about it, you know?
Yeah, I know, but like I know the popular pick is gonna be like Draper and Fonseca, so I'll give you something a little bit different here. But but no, I mean like yeah, like obviously I think Djokovic is gonna be the favorite and whoever wins that 4th round. But you know, Cam did like sort of make it physical in Geneva, and he's playing some good clay tennis right now, and I'm interested to see because yeah, 2 Brits against each other, both from TCU. I don't think they've faced each other ever, so this would be a first. So I'm curious to see how the rallies unfold and stuff in that. But yeah, and then on the women's side, I'll go Vondrousova and Pegula because I still have that quarterfinal at Wimbledon fresh in my memory from 2023 where Pegula was up like 4-1 in the 3rd set, and then the roof closes, and then Vondrousova ends up winning, and she ends up winning the title. And I wonder how she looks. And also, Vondrousova is just the most difficult to predict in general with how her fitness is and when and where she peaks. And she's made a final here before, so this could be the opportunity for her in this draw.
Damien, would you like to answer the producer's question?
He's not. I mean, no. I mean, if I'm serious, like just by what he's been doing so far, he's got such a ridiculously good forehand, and that, like, it's a good safety net while being aggressive. Just be brave with it, really, and yeah, play your game, and hopefully it's gonna be enough. But well, I doubt it will. I also doubt he will just be able to just come out and play once more, the best tennis of his career. Because he's going to be facing Novak on a big court. I know he trained with Novak a lot last year, but, it's not really going to be that easy. Yeah, Ghosty, I actually call him miso paste a lot in my head. So that kind of makes sense. But yeah, tomorrow's men's schedule is clearly very much Fonseca Draper centric. If we want to go away from that, I guess the first test for Zverev is also what should be pretty interesting. Zverev Koboli, is it tougher than Zverev Arnaldi? I guess either way would have been pretty difficult, and then I'm excited about the potential prospect of him playing Greek sport as well. And women's, I think 2 matches we didn't really say anything about, so maybe Keys Kenin would be one of mine, and also Badosa Kasatkina. I know Kasatkina hasn't had the best season, but if Paula's back holds up, yeah, I think it should be pretty fine as well.
I also have Nori Fernley because everyone's obviously talking about Draper Fonseca. and I will. Yeah, I'm gonna actually go with Damien as well. Kazuchina Badosa. I feel like that could be quite interesting.
No Jacquemot Boisson. I guess when you see Jacquemot Boisson, you can kind of relate to what I'm feeling when I see Nori Fernley. Like it's the same for me, you know. It's just like, okay, yeah, nice, all whatever, all French, all British battle. I don't know why I should care who wins.
I'm actually just curious before we sign off. Does anyone have Fonseca beating Draper tomorrow?
No.
No.
I don't. I think Draper will win in 3.
That's also why I was not as pumped as maybe some other people about this. Maybe because I just have PTSD a little bit from the Indian Wells match, or I just kind of think
the hype around the Indian Wells match was everyone was so like ready, and then he got bageled in the second. I mean, first set was pretty good, and then he got bageled in the second. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like he was even playing that poorly. It's just like Jack was shrinking the court to that extent. So Fonseca only really has one game plan, and that's blast through the opponent. Yeah. And if that happens again, like, sure, he can have a very good spurt of 30 minutes of insane tennis, but how does he do it for 3 sets? I don't know. I have to see it to believe it. I kind of have PTSD as well. I've already seen him make 100 unforced errors against Draper. In the long run, I kind of expect to see it again. Although on the kind of like, you know, ironically enough, on clay, it might be a little easier for him to do something else, right? Just to open up the court with another play a drop shot, play a good kick serve, and set up the +1 forehand. Whereas in Indian Wells, I don't think he was really using that. So I like his chances to keep it closer, but I don't really believe in him winning now.
Excellent. Well, that is all from us on Last Ball Drops for day 6. Thank you very much, Vanch, Damien, and Carson. And I will see you all very soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Okay.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.